There are lots of different builds that will become stronger for 26.16 that you're going to want to try. So in today's video, we'll be breaking down 10 of the most OP setups that you can play. But while every patch changes the meta, losers queue still feels real as ever. Top laners getting solo killed 5 times, junglers farming while everybody else fights a dragon, supports farming your waves, and ADCs getting caught on cooldown. Those players aren't going anywhere. And the truth is, they exist in every elo. So if your entire strategy for climbing relies on getting better ones, you're never going to escape. That's why SkillCapped Season 16 Essentials course teaches you how to carry without relying on your team. One complete course for every role, breaking down the exact decisions you need at every stage of the game. How to consistently win trades, how to manage waves and when to recall, and how to convert your lead into dominating the entire map, even while your teammates are running around doing absolutely nothing, including when to roam, when to split push, when to group, when to farm, or when to gank. And when you're ready to go even deeper, our advanced courses on macro and trading teach you exactly how to take your game to the next level. For junglers, our world record clears are designed to give you countless minutes of extra free time, and our weekly challenger commentaries show you step by step how to carry real games on your chosen champion, including how to win your most difficult matchups with the same unreliable teammates you deal with every single day. We've even tested these systems through our bronze to diamond climbs, taking real hard-stuck players and getting them the rank they've always wanted using only our courses, documenting their entire journey. You can't stop your teammates from trolling, but you can stop them from deciding whether you climb. And because everything is backed up by our rank up guarantee, you can try it completely risk-free. Check out SkillCapped today using the exclusive discount in the description or pinned comment below. So an item combo that is getting buffed for this patch is Black Cleaver with Steric's Gauge, and a top lane champ who you have to try it on is Illaoi. So most Illaoi players opt for Iceborne Gauntlet as a second or third purchase, but with Black Cleaver gaining the 5 extra AD, it's going to separate itself as the more optimal rush item, especially in games where the enemy team does not have a bunch of physical damage. This is where this Cleaver into Steric's build will work the best. The majority of Illaoi players don't purchase Steric's until third, but slotting it in second after these buffs is going to work great. Worth noting is that even prior to these Steric's Gauge buffs, the item has been the best win probability second item for Illaoi, heavily beating out Iceborne Gauntlet. And then to note for the rune page, look to grab Grasp over Conqueror if you're in a melee matchup. The Grasp proc is going to help you out a ton with early trades, and because you are building 2 heavy health items in Cleaver and Steric's, you've got good synergy with the health scaling on the rune. Conqueror is still good if you are in a ranged matchup or into a tankier enemy comp. One top lane champ who has been more niche with Black Cleaver in recent patches who you will want to try it on is Yorick. Black Cleaver as a rush item on Yorick has actually been his best performing item in recent patches, so with the buff coming through, it's going to look even better. The item is going to work best for you if you're going up against an enemy comp who you think will stack a good amount of armor. Of course, the passive from Cleaver will give you the % armor shred, so you get more value out of that if the enemy team builds lots of armor. Into squishier enemy comps, you can still opt into rushing Trinity Force, but there are now 2 really good options for Yorick's rush that he can choose between, so it makes him a lot more versatile. After rushing Black Cleaver, it's going to be Spear of Shojin's second item, and then grab a Steric's Gauge third. Yorick gets to benefit from both the Cleaver and Steric's buffs, so his relative power goes up a bunch for 26.16. And then for the rune page, if you're running Black Cleaver rush, it's likely you're into a tank top, in which case taking Conqueror for your keystone is the way to go. There's a more AP bursty style of Volibear going around lately, and here's what it's looking like. Instead of rushing Dusk and Dawn, you are delaying the item until second and going for a Rocket Belt rush instead. Rocket Belt on Volibear has a ton of value because the active dash makes it way easier for him to close the gap and land his stun from Q. What's unique about this setup as well is that you don't take lethal tempo for the keystone rune. You're playing for more upfront damage with this setup, so it's going to be press the attack slotted in as the keystone. This setup is all about catching enemies out of position and being able to burst them out a lot quicker, as the standard Volibear build revolves around flicker blades and lethal tempo, which is more suited for longer extended fights. So games where this Rocket Belt with PTA setup will be best is if the enemy team has majority squishy champions. There's still great value to running flicker blades and lethal tempo into more tanky or bruisery enemy comps, but if the entire enemy team is squishy, then you're going to get more value out of having better catch power and more upfront burst from Rocket Belt and press the attack. So with the Bastion Breaker buffs going through last patch, we're seeing it played more often on junglers, and one in specific who has been finding a lot of success is Viego. So the most popular rush item on Viego is Kraken Slayer. So why would you want Bastion over Kraken? Well, Kraken Slayer is going to provide stronger extended skirmish, while Bastion provides superior upfront burst potential and snowball power. You get 22 lethality from Bastion Breaker, along with the passive true damage proc, so your ability to find a catch with W and then one-shot that target is amazing with Bastion Breaker. It's Bastion Breaker Rush into the Collector second, and where this build will work best for you is in games where you're either snowballing really hard early on, or if the enemy team has majority squishy targets. Kraken Rush will still be of great value into tankier teams, but Bastion Breaker is going to provide more value against squishies. Another jungler who makes even more sense to run Bastion Breaker on for 26.16 is Talon. So Talon is one of those junglers who can snowball insanely hard early on, so if you get off to a nice advantage, then opting for Bastion Breaker so you can mow down towers faster is such a great play. If you go for the 3-item combo of Umbral Glaive, Bastion Breaker, and Voltaic Cyclosword, then the amount of upfront burst is just ludicrous. Every single one of those items has a passive that provides a burst of damage, so Talon's ability to one-shot whichever target he jumps on is insane. As a matter of fact, it's true damage coming out of both Umbral Glaive and Bastion Breaker, so that 2-item spike allows you to one-shot squishies so easy in the mid-game. You still want to rush Umbral Glaive on Talon because its passive is just massive value on the champ so that he can traverse around the map and know that he's not being spotted on vision. And then with Fleet Footwork buff for this patch, we expect for Talon to be one of the top tier junglers in meta, so definitely look to try out this setup if you're going to pick him up. So with the Bel'Veth mini rework going live last patch, there's a lot of new ways that you can look to itemize for her, so let's break it down. Due to the changes, building attack speed and on-hit items has become a lot more efficient, and because of this, we are seeing Rageblade perform very well as a core purchase. It's not just Rageblade though, as Terminus slotted in as a 3rd item for even more attack speed and on-hit rounds out the core super nice. So the complete core build dominating solo queue right now has Bel'Veth rushing Kraken Slayer into Rageblade 2nd and Terminus 3rd. And of course, Lethal Tempo will be for the Keystone rune so that you get even more attack speed. So this is the most standard Bel'Veth setup right now that you really can't go wrong with, but an alternative crit build is also something you can try. Yuntal Wild Arrows as a rush on Bel'Veth in its limited sample size is actually her best performing item right now. Of course, we have to take this with a grain of salt because of the lower sample, but there have been around 15,000 games of crit, which isn't a terribly low sample. You rush Yuntal into Infinity Edge 2nd and then Shield Bow or Lord Dom's 3rd. Keystone rune with this build is going to be press the attack so that your upfront burst is stronger. So the general rule of thumb is that the on-hit setup is going to work best for you when playing against more bruiser or tank enemy comps, but the crit setup will slot in the best in games where the enemy team is majority squishy to where you can burst them out easier by going pure damage. So we've been seeing a new adaptation for Galio builds come to life over the past few patches, and it consists of taking Abyssal Mask as a core purchase instead of Hollow Radiance. The 2-item core is Abyssal Mask and Imperial Mandate, and these items synergize really well together because they provide you and your team with a huge boost in damage on whichever target you focus. The passive on Abyssal amps all magic damage by 12%, while the passive from Mandate provides a 7% boost in damage, so you're enabling your team to follow up a lot better by building these 2 items. Where Abyssal is going to be most ideal for you is in games where you're up against a magic damage mid laner and your bot lane carry is playing a mage. Remember, the passive damage amp from Abyssal only amps magic damage by 12%, so if your team is all physical damage, you're just better off siding with Hollow Radiance for a magic resist item. So at the very least, one of your teammates should be magic damage if you are building Abyssal Mask, but most ideally, it's in a game where you have a mage bot and an AP top or jungle too. The data behind Abyssal as a rush item on Galio is really strong, as it has both a higher win rate and higher win probability added than Hollow Radiance and Rocket Belt, which are the 2 more common rush items on Galio. So a rune setup that still remains quite underrated on Azir that has been winning a ton more relative to Lethal Tempo in recent patches is Press the Attack. PTA Azir users have been winning about 3% more than Lethal Tempo users, which is a massive gap. And it's not like PTA even has that much lower of a play rate either, as 34% of Azir players have been taking Press the Attack, while 44% go Lethal Tempo. I guess you could argue that all the noob Azir players who just run recommended runes are still stuck on Lethal Tempo, which is causing this big gap in win rate, but even then, a 3% gap is something you rarely see without the rune that's winning more just being flat out better. If we look at the more advanced stats like win probability added, then we see an even clearer picture, as PTA is providing around 1.9 win probability added, while Lethal Tempo is down at negative 0.8, so you're actually getting negative value from running Lethal Tempo right now. The build that you want to run with this rune page consists of taking Dusk and Dawn as the rush item. Dusk and Dawn will allow you to proc PTA in just 2 auto attacks instead of 3, so you have a ton of upfront burst with this setup. If anything, Press the Attack just gains even more value for 26.16 because Azir Q damage is going up, so that threat of an Azir Q into proccing PTA is going to make his quick trading in lane so much better. So for quite some time now, Fiend Hunter Bolt has been by far the most popular second item on Ynnara, but that should very well change for 26.16. We're seeing buffs come through for Hurricane, with movement speed going up by 1% and the passive AD ratio being increased by 10%. What's actually really interesting is that even prior to these Hurricane buffs, based on the advanced stats, the item had the highest win probability added for any second purchase on Ynnara. So the item has already been super underrated and is just getting better, so you will want to be trying Hurricane Yanara for 26.16 without question. So in theory, Fiend Hunter Bolt is going to be stronger into more squishy comps because the upfront burst from its passive helps you single out a target and take them down quickly. With Hurricane though, you have the AoE damage potential from its passive Bolt, so it's going to slot in best if the enemy team is majority melee and ideally more tanky. With the Hurricane buffs though, it could just be the flat out best option for every game because of how valuable it was even prior to the changes. Yanara is an ADC who lacks a strong wave clear tool in her kit, so access to the AoE damage from Hurricane is more valuable for her than on a lot of other ADCs. And then one more ADC who you should consider taking Hurricane on for 26.16 is Jinx. So Jinx now has two really good second item options in Phantom Dancer and Hurricane. Prior to the Hurricane buffs, PD has actually had the better stat lines than Hurricane, so it's not as crazy on Jinx as for Yanara, to where Yanara was winning way more with Hurricane even prior to the buffs. It's very even though on Jinx between PD and Hurricane, so you can look to adapt your setup based on the enemy comp. If the enemy team is more rangy and lacks a considerable front line, then just go Phantom Dancer. If they have something like a tank top and jungle though, and you're going to need to shred through the enemy front line in order to win fights, that's where you should be prioritizing Hurricane over Phantom Dancer. The additional damage coming out of the Hurricane bolts should be quite noticeable on Jinx because of the fact she builds Infinity Edge as her third item, and it provides 75 AD, so if you also factor in the 55 AD from Hex Optics, then that's going to equate to 13 more damage from the Hurricane bolts due to it getting buffed by 10% AD. But while lists like these show you what to play, our brand new Season 16 Essentials courses for every role teach you how to win, each designed to walk you through every stage of the game from start to finish, from the exact trading and recall timers you need to win lane, to the mid-game macro decisions 99% of players get completely wrong, all the way to the team fighting tips and tricks challengers abuse to always deal the highest damage possible. Whether you're a top laner in the most unfavorable matchup possible, a mid laner having to deal with everybody in your lane 24/7, a jungler trying to balance ganking with farming, an ADC stuck trying to hard carry with a support who just exists to grief you, or a support that's struggling to carry games on your own. Our Essentials courses are tailor-made to focus on the exact concepts that actually matter for climbing on your role in your elo. Check them out today, completely risk-free, using the link in the pinned comment or description below, as if you don't climb at least 5 divisions, you get every penny back. So that's gonna wrap everything up for this one. Those are 10 new builds that are really strong for 26.16 that you can look to try out. Thank you all so much for watching. We'll see you back soon.